presented almost in a parable type of format. So I got a lot of good feedback on it. And as I kept doing them, I thought, if I go up and I do at least 30 of these, I can put them in a book and do a compilation.
Amen.
And so that's what I've been recently working on, is taking those first 30 plus that I had, putting it in a compilation. It's in a manuscript format right now, where next stage is to edit it. I've spent some time today looking at book covers, things like that. So it's not quite there yet. It's a long journey, a lot longer than I thought it was going to be.
Well, let me tell you something. We might have to start over because when I hit the record button, it says, "Do you want to record on the computer or the cloud?" I was like, "Dude, just start recording." So I'm just gonna
It
start the
does say
intro.
it shows it's recording, so I don't know what you told it to record on.
I know it's weird. No, now it's recording because, and I saw that button after.
That's fine. We can start all over again. Bloopers. Yes.
These are the bloopers, guys.
Yeah.
Don't miss them out.
Yeah. You bring me on your show, you're going to have bloopers.
I know, right? Welcome back to another episode of Hacks and Hobbies. Steve Sullivan, thank you for coming back on another episode. We had you back last season on the podcast. Thanks again for coming back. We've had some amazing conversations back then, and we're so excited to have you.
Thank you so much, Junaid. It's great to be back to interact with you and to share whatever it is that you have planned for us today with your audience.
Absolutely. So, in the first episode that we had with you, we talked a lot about how to be a gentleman, how to be somebody who is a person of the most deepest regard, right? It was really deep. It was very, heart touching. And then we also talked about your journey on what you've been doing all of your life and where you are today. So since last year, there's a lot been changed. There's a lot of things that you've been working on. You've been super active on LinkedIn. I love the community that you've grown and created, and how you're engaging with your audience and engaging with the people. It's really beautiful. So how has that changed for you in the past year?
I think one of the big changes is a year ago, I was still kind of looking for employment, being unemployed. And my father passed away last summer. That caused me to take some time off and begin to look at becoming an entrepreneur. And along the way, I became a UMAP certified coach, so I can help people look at their personal profile
Mm-hmm.
in terms of strengths and values, skills, personality, the things that make them unique,
Nice.
and also drive their decisions when it comes to things that they find uh, enjoyment in terms of work or in relationships. Um, and I do, as you know, a lot of writing along the side.
Mm-hmm.
I have a regular post on LinkedIn on Story Saturday that I
Nice.
love writing short little stories for.
That's awesome. So those stories have a lot of influence, I'm sure, on people in your network. I have been very absent-minded on LinkedIn, just been super busy with everything that's been going around. Um, I too was unemployed for the better part of 2019,
Mm.
and luckily I got something to, get back to it. And then now we're living in a really different times. The pandemic has changed the landscape of where everybody is. So in the green room, we did talk about, you're working on a book compilation, and that's going to basically come from the amazing stories you've been writing.
That's correct. When I set out writing stories on LinkedIn, I did it just to add kind of a new flavor, a new type of post. Uh, as I did these weekly,
Mm-hmm.
I got to a point where people started encouraging me. And I started thinking, if I do enough of these, I could probably put them into a compilation
Yeah.
and make a book from them. And so I've done that. I've got uh, a selection of the first 30 that I've put into a manuscript form. And I'm currently editing that, getting the
Mhm.
book cover together, and hope, and then, by the year end to have a copy of this book out and released to the public.
Nice.
In the
That's
meantime,
amazing.
I continue to build a following on LinkedIn for the stories, interacting with people, and,
Mhm.
and trying to prepare for a good book launch.
That's really cool. When you write a book like that, where you're bringing these stories to light, I think one thing that you're doing is not only are you, because a book is a marketing tool for who Steve Sullivan is, right? So
Yeah.
it's gonna put you on the map as being an author, because once you have that author on you, you immediately, like, there's a switch that goes off in your head, like, I can do this. This is a piece of cake. Just like when you first created your video, like, oh my God, I don't know how this is gonna work, how many things I gotta go through, right? You go through that first gate. I'm like, oh my God, that was so easy. And then you just jump through gates over and over because it's so easy. It's like, um, the very first time I got on a roller coaster. It was probably 20 years ago, or actually even more. And I was 19. I got on this was this Magic Mountain in California.
Okay.
This ride was called Viper, and it's got twists and turns and everything. So I'm in line, and I'm like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I finally get in. I finally get in the roller coaster, and it starts its climb, and it's click 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 going all the way to the top. And I'm like, oh my god, right? I'm like,
Yeah, the
totally freaking
suspense.
out. I'm like, oh my god, I don't know if I'm gonna survive this, guys. So I'm just holding on so tight with my eyes closed. Finally, the ride starts, and I was just so ecstatic. Like, I was enjoying it. Like, because these rides are so quick, like 2 minutes or like minute and a half or whatever, it's over. And it comes to a stop, and I'm like, dude, I want to do this again. Right? So you gotta step out of your comfort zone to and take that risk of, getting on camera, writing your first post, writing your first article, sharing these stories. Because as a human being, we are constantly judging ourselves.
Yes, we are.
Right, before anybody else is even, like, we think of, oh, what's somebody else gonna think? Like, that's our own self telling us, don't do it, dude. It's not worth it's not worth it.
Yes, those inner voices that we have to quelch.
Yeah, so that's really amazing. I love it. Um, One thing I want to say, don't take too long publishing that book. Why? Because Seth Godin said, it took me 6 months to launch one book, and the second book he launched one time, it took him 2 weeks. And it's like, and both of these books, the one that he launched in 2 weeks, I mean, they're both the same size. They're both, but the one he launched in 2 weeks gave him a lot more momentum,
Hmm.
right? And if you look at avalanches, if you look at things like that, it takes seconds for that stuff to happen. It doesn't take a long it like you long it doesn't take a long time for them to gain speed, but again, um, you want to get through that because those stories are already written, right?
Well, they have been for a while. But
They're
the,
already
the
written, they're
thing,
already published.
kind of one of the things we were talking about earlier was the team that you have around you.
Hmm.
If I had the money, there would be certain people that I would hire out and get it and it'd be done, as
Yeah,
opposed to me trying to do a DIY. Okay, since I can't afford an editor, how can I self-edit? I can't afford a book cover person. How can I create
sure.
a book cover? And part of me, like you, I'm a learner. So,
Hmm.
I am enjoying trying to learn these secrets that other people know that you can hire them for their expertise.
Right.
And hopefully the day will come when book 2 comes
Mm-hmm.
that I can have the money to hire these people,
Mm-hmm.
but at least I'll be able to go in working with them with an understanding and knowledge of what they're trying to do.
Right.
Because, for example, just as I look at self editing, I'm beginning to see things in my writing that if I had been in tune with, I probably would have corrected as I went along,
Mm-hmm.
or avoided doing that in the first place.
Sure.
Uh, and now I was like, okay, now I gotta go back through and edit and find these places.
Um, are there any tools that you're using to help you along the way?
Well, one of the number one problems that can get a book not sold or people reject is either bad writing and typos.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are some good tools like Grammarly,
Yeah.
Hemingway that you can put a document into or even write in,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll flag things along the way. It's not perfect
Yeah.
because I could tell you there's times when it flags something, I have to go back and look at it and say, no, I don't want to take this article out, or I don't want to put an article in.
Yeah.
You're missing, it takes a personal touch for some of those things, but generally the good thing is it will catch misspellings, grammatical situations. If
Yeah.
you're typically the kind of person who writes in passive instead of active voice,
Yeah,
it's
that's the
really,
other thing that I noticed. Mm-hmm.
it's really good. It'll highlight that and say, hey, this is a passive. You might want to rewrite this into an
Yeah.
active. So
Yeah. Yeah, Grammarly has been really powerful for me too, especially when I'm writing the descriptions for for the episodes, or anytime I'm writing anything at all. I run it through Grammarly, and since all my transcripts are automatically created through AI, like it'll take the audio, it'll convert it into transcript. As we speak as humans speak or talk, we like to repeat words, we like to repeat the sentences and then all the pauses. So it catches all of that. So then I take that transcript, I'd put it in Grammarly and like, okay, you have this duplication. Like, can I remove it for you? So you could just go in there and, correct it. But again, it's still a conversation. It's not
yes,
something that's written up.
definitely. I mean, for me, one of my pet problems as a writer is I get ahead of myself, so I skip over words. And so Grammarly is great to flag something, and then I'll go back and look. Oh, okay, yeah, I meant to say this, but I forgot this word.
Yeah, exactly. And I've done that many times. Sometimes I feel like I'm dyslexic. Like anytime I'm replying to an email, I'll start with the last thing that I read, and then I'll like work in reverse. So I'll write out the reverse email, and then I'll like, all right, let me move this section back up here so it answers the first question they asked.
Well, each has its process. So
Yeah, yeah. So that's awesome, man. I love that you're taking into that dive of writing the book, and bringing these stories in a form that somebody can don't need a device anymore. You can just have a printed book to read these stories. What so I have Since I haven't been reading a lot of the Story Saturdays, what is one of the main themes that you're focusing on these Story Saturdays?
I'm in my second series. So the first series was largely about leadership, a little bit about mindset,
Mm-hmm.
having the right kind of mindsets. And so that first book will be compiled into what I'm roughly calling Stories to Lead By.
Okay.
Right now, I'm writing a series based on the strengths that have been identified by the Gallup Clifton Strength Finder. So if you've
Mm,
ever taken that test,
I have, yeah.
yeah, there's 34 psychological strengths that have been identified. And so each week I take the next strength and write a story around it.
Nice.
And this second series has been great because I grabbed a couple UMAP coaches, um, Lori Knutson, Gina
Mm,
Riley, and they do video posts in conjunction with the story,
nice.
because the goal of the story is not to really tell you about the strength as much as to try and show you the strength, and then the excellent ladies come along and
Yeah.
they'll really get into the meat of what that strength is and help people see, hey, do you have this strength? Yeah, you might.
No, that's really cool. I need to go check those out because when I took my gala, I was like, okay, I'm these things. These are my top five strengths. What do they mean? So I'm going back and reading them. Like, okay, this is what it means, but I still like don't remember it. So if I go back and check out your stories on those strengths, I'm like, okay, I know exactly who I am. This is
You
great.
might, you might. I mean, as a UMAP coach, that's one of the things we really drill down into is we've heard that people have taken the test. They might even remember what their top five is. They may not even remember what their top
Yeah.
five is. And so there is a wealth of insight there that they just lost.
Yeah.
And as a UMAP coach, I spend time drilling down into those to help people understand what the strength does for them. And
Mm,
also, every strength has an Achilles heel
of course.
that you may not realize. For example, if you have the achiever strength, you're going to be awesome at setting goals and completing those goals and accomplishing things.
Mm-hmm.
But the Achilles heel to the achiever strength is that you often put task ahead of people. And so your relationships might suffer. And I was coaching one guy and talking to him, and he's like, "Well, I really love my family and my daughter. I just don't see that." And the next week he came back to me and he said, "Steve, the light bulb went on last weekend. I was working on this project for work on Saturday. My 6-year-old daughter came up to me and I brushed her aside. And then the light bulb went on. That's what Steve was talking about."
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, I went and talked to my wife and said, "Do I do that often?" And she said, "You do it all the time." And he was like, bing, his eyes opened up, and he came back and he talked to him. We then talked about how to take the achiever strength and utilize it to make sure that he was number one at home and not just number one at work. Because, for example, with achiever strength, they're very goal oriented. But
Yeah.
how many people do you know on their checklist of goals have things related to their family? It's usually almost always work.
Yeah. It's
And
always work.
and that will tear at you. But if you're an achiever and you put things on there like be there for my son's baseball game, read to my daughter at bedtime, if you put those on your checklist, they'll be there to remind you that these are things that you want to do, and you'll
Mm-hmm.
make time to do it and have more success in being balanced in your life.
Wow, dude. So
So yes, go back and look at your
I'm
strengths.
looking at it right now, dude.
Oh yeah? What are your top five strengths? You got a cheater in there?
Yes. My number one is achiever.
Yeah.
Number
And
two,
did I just describe you?
yeah. Oh my God, both my wife and I are achievers. That's hilarious. Because it's, she's very similar to me and it totally makes sense. I'm like, okay, I'm on here. And then like a lot of the time, so last month or May, we spent a lot of time on Zoom through these conversations on unconventional leaders, and every time around 5 o'clock or 4:30, my kids would show up and I just hold them and still be on the call, and then everybody would be waving at them. But so I've done like I've been more accommodating. I think so. Like because like you said, you put in your mind, okay, this is something that you want to focus on by spending more time with your kids. So it's you put a checklist in your head, like, okay, this is something. Like if I do this thing by spending time with my kids, I am reaching that goal.
Yeah, you are, especially if you have conversations with your kids and find out what's really important to them.
Yeah.
You know, for some kids, it's important that you be there to their baseball games. You know, others, it might not be as important.
Yeah.
And depending on their age, if they're little, maybe it's, you know, reading the bedtime story.
Yes. And I've been reading bedtime stories to my daughter every
Good for
day.
you. So you're balancing out your achiever
Balancing out
trait.
my achiever. Number two is intellection.
Oh, intellection. That is an inward thinking
Mm-hmm.
strength. Intellection allows you to look at different thoughts, pull them together, and you like to reflect on them. You like to
Mm-hmm.
spend some time, you may be meditating, maybe thinking about them,
Yeah.
and trying, and in some ways, to pull things out of the subject or whatever it is you're thinking on, to make greater sense of it for you in your life.
Dude, you've
I died. Okay, so what's number three?
and so just to talk about intellection for the past 2 years that I've been doing the podcast, right? I've connected with you guys. I've connected through through the 30 days of videos with you, with all of the people there, with LinkedIn and with other people, and I'm just watching other people. What are they doing? They're doing mastermind. They're doing courses. They're doing videos. They're doing blah blah blah. Right? All of these things. So I'm taking all of that and I'm like, okay, how can I put it all together? And that's the reflection part that I'm doing. Like all of this studio all happened because I took everything that I knew. I took everything that they're teaching me. I'm like, okay, how can I make this work for me? And boom.
That's an election. Yep.
Oh my God. That's pretty powerful.
Yes. Once you realize the power, I mean, what these strengths identify, you can recognize them in your life and say, wow, this is important. And for some people, they've been told certain things that are bad about them.
Oh.
You know, like children, if they have the adaptability strength, maybe their parents are like, you're wishy-washy. And because the parents do not understand that the child has a strength to quickly adapt to different things and go different directions.
Hmm.
And what parents often don't realize is later on in life, that strength may propel their child to become a great leader. Because if you go out and look at Forbes and other places, one of the things they're talking about in terms of good leadership, strong leadership, is leaders that are adaptable.
Hmm.
So if you have that strength, it might be the stepping stone for you into leadership and other great accomplishments.
You know what's really powerful of what you just mentioned about adaptability? We are in a very crazy time right now with COVID-19, and it is creating a lot of adaptability in kids. Like enormous amounts of adaptability. They have changed, like they were going to school, now they're going Zoom calls. Every day they're doing Zoom calls to play. They can only go outside or they can play indoors, depending on what is afforded to them, right? Some people who are living in the apartments, they can't go out and play. They're stuck inside. So wow. So 10 years from now or 15 years now, we're gonna have a lot of adaptable leaders. It's gonna be crazy times. Whew.
It will be. It will be. I
All
mean,
right, so number no, this is what's funny is that so we started with where we were,
yeah.
the stories that you're creating, and I think it's all interconnected because I get to, use your expertise on my Gallup
Yes,
strengths that
exactly.
I
For
took
free.
like,
Yeah, I charge people for this.
right? You know what? I'll help you design a book cover. How's that?
You have expertise in that area.
Oh yeah, I've done the book covers for for my own books. This book cover.
Okay.
There's some other ones that aren't printed, but yeah. Um, I mean, I am a graphic designer. Been designing, for 20 years. That's my main job right now.
Well,
I
maybe
design
I'll
enterprise
run
applications.
by some examples that I'm concocting to give you, because there are a lot of tools like Canva,
Oh
even
yeah,
PowerPoint, where you can actually create book covers.
absolutely.
But it's the artistic understanding of contrast, of
Hmm.
creating a focal point, and various things like that that are important in cover designs that
Yeah,
the average person does not know.
exactly. Exactly. All right, my number three
Okay.
is connectedness.
Oh, I love connectedness because that's my number one.
Oh wow, nice.
Connecting people with connectedness can see the big picture
Mm.
as well as the little things that make up that big picture. And they have the ability then to take those little things and move them around and sometimes create what might be called process improvements or strategic partnerships,
Oh.
various ways of even with technology, connecting different technologies together
Mm-hmm.
in a way that improves upon things. So
That I
it,
mean.
it, it, it depends on whether you're doing technology, processes, or people. The
Mm-hmm.
connectedness has a great deal to offer from that big picture to the small picture going out.
Wow.
Does that sound like you? It sounds like you. I know you.
It does because I'm creating processes for my podcast. How can I automate this stuff? What's going to be more efficient? And then now I'm connecting with people. And like all of this, like I keep pointing at this, like all of that intellection and connectedness is coming together. Like, oh, this is how, and then I can like even go back to the dates where I connect with somebody and learn from them a teeny bit of information that I can then stack on top of what I already knew. Wow.
Yes. Yes. See,
The fourth one is gonna laugh.
maybe.
Is gonna crack you up.
Okay.
I'm a learner.
Oh, that's one of mine too. So we've got connectedness and learner together.
Yeah.
People who have the learner strength have an insatiable curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
and you just want to keep learning. You want to keep learning. Now, it can also affect their careers in some ways because they may, after a certain period of time, like, for me, it was like about every 7 years,
Uh-huh.
I decide I've had enough doing this and now I want to change and do something else. And so I've gone through 4 or 5 different iterations. Now, all of them, except for maybe this last one, have been geared around IT,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was programming and one to information security to the data center to all those things. The one thing you have to watch out for with learner, the Achilles heel to that is you can kind of go sideways. You see something interesting and you start following down that, and you end up in a rabbit hole someplace learning stuff, but that stuff isn't really germane to what you were really needing to research to get your job done or accomplish whatever it is you're trying to accomplish.
I feel you, man. um, because excited about the process of learning, but don't really care about the outcome. Like, right? And I can think about it because I have at least 100 different courses on Udemy. I took into speed reading, and the reason I took on to speed reading is like if I can learn speed reading, I can read more stuff.
Yeah.
I never really finished the speed reading course.
I'm in the same boat with you. I'm in the same boat. But another aspect of learners often are teachers
Hmm.
because they learn information and then they want to share that. They're so excited about learning that they turn around and want to talk to other people and say, "Hey, you should learn this too."
Absolutely, and that's why I'm wearing this T-shirt that says Teach
Yes.
everything you know.
Yeah. That is a learner t-shirt right there.
That's a learn t-shirt. And what's awesome is I've seen I've been watching Pat Flynn for some time, right? Pat Flynn of Smart Passive Income, and he's wearing this t-shirt in a lot of his videos. I'm like, where does he get this from? And the other day I was in my ConvertKit account. We did some. My teammates did some century rides. No, sorry, Everesting rides. They basically climbed Everest on their bikes. 30,000 feet of climbing, right?
Uh,
On their road
a
bikes.
mountain bike.
Road bikes.
Oh, road bikes. Okay.
And so we had like we were working together with the local community, and we were raising money for the local community. And so there were like 80, 90 emails that we had that we wanted to send out. Hey, you guys pledged this much money. You need to, please respond or go to this link and donate. So I imported, I was like, hey, I can help with that. So I imported these 90 emails into my ConvertKit account. And they're like, hooray! Here's a code to get a free t-shirt, everything. I'm like, yes! I finally found the golden egg. And I've been creating videos, so I was like, I'm gonna show up with this one and send a link to Pat Flynn. I'm like, dude, what's up?
Good.
What's funny is that he's also on the board member. He's also an advisor for that company. So it's really good to know that I'm in good company with this when I'm in this on this service.
Good.
And what's funny is that essentially goes into my fifth strength, which
Okay.
is a relator, and all I've been doing so far is relating things from one thing to the other.
Well, a relator, it could be relating different things, but it's largely focused on people,
Okay.
on wanting to win people, to um, embrace them. Uh, you're looking for commonalities with other people
Mm-hmm.
that strengthen the bond between you and them. That so a relator is a great strength. So with connectedness and relator, you've got two what we call relating strengths.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear you have any influential strengths, so you're like me. And then there's
Maybe I need to go back and
executing.
do it.
There's executing, which is I'm pretty sure achievers an executing strength, and your intellection and learner are thinking strengths.
Mm-hmm. So based on the color coding that they're putting, okay, so achiever, connected, okay, connectedness and relator is this relationship building, and then intellection and learner are the strategic thinking, and then achiever is the executing.
Correct. Now, if you were to get all 34,
Mm-hmm.
you could then look at your next five and say, how do they spread out?
Mm.
Because some individuals, and you may be one of them, that's balanced. And by that, a balanced individual usually has strengths across three different channels or themes, as we call
Mm-hmm.
them. And obviously, your top five spread that way.
Yeah,
My top five, I've got one relator, two executing, and two thinking. And so when I saw that, I thought, man, that's odd. you know, what's this one relator out here? Even though it's the thing that drives me.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
But once I got my other 34 and looked at the top 10, I found I had in the top 10 three relators,
Mm-hmm.
uh, three executing, and four thinking themes. So
Okay.
that
I
makes
I
you.
think I got all 50 of them, or all 34 of them, I think. So then my next one is self-assurance.
Self-assurance. That's one of those very rare ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it is. And it does it say it's in the thinking things, or is it
It's under influential.
oh, it's okay. It's under influential.
It's similar to self-confidence, deepest part of you. You have faith in your strengths. You know that you're able to take risks, able to meet new challenges, able to take stake claims. Most important, able to deliver. Okay, well,
Yeah, it is. It stems around the idea of confidence, and that confidence allows you to execute well. So it goes really well hand in hand with your execution strengths.
nice. And then I got positivity,
Oh
number
yeah,
7.
positivity, which is another relationship one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, again, people that have positivity, they're always the the glass is half full, not half empty,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they know how to take some of the toughest situations in life and find positive results out of it and to utilize those results. They can be
Wow.
very resilient people.
Wow. This is really awesome, man. I really enjoyed talking to you about these strengths because being a UMAP certified, you've studied these in deep, in depth. I'm sure I have access to it, access to my report, and I can go read them. But you helped me connect the thoughts that were in my head in a way that reading text doesn't always get to you.
That is an excellent point because people sometimes say to me, why do I need a UMAP coach when I can go do this and this and this? You can do all the assessments yourself. But,
Yeah.
in my experience and what you just said is true. When you're trying to do it yourself, there's you're not you don't have the depth of insight around it to make it mean as much.
Yeah.
And when you work with a coach, boy, they can help pull out of you,
Hmm.
how it works. Because if we were in a true coaching situation, I'd be asking you, tell me about times in your life where you see this strength. And I get all these wonderful stories from you
Yeah.
because you'd be able to say, oh yeah, I remember when I did this.
Hmm.
And those stories then are things you're more likely to remember than the strengths themselves.
Exactly.
But the story then may remind you, oh yeah, Steve asked me that, and that was related to connectedness.
Hmm. No, I like that. I wish I had focus as number one because I I lack a lot of focus.
there are a few. I mean, that doesn't mean even if you find it low on your 34,
Hmm.
like I think my number 34 is empathy.
Hey, same here. I was like, why is empathy number 34?
It's
I'm very
empathy,
empathetic.
but yet I'm known to be a very caring and compassionate person.
Hmm.
So what I've had, the nice thing about becoming a UMAP coach is understanding what empathy really means, which is
Yeah.
the abilities to feel what other people are feeling and almost take those feelings upon yourself.
Hmm.
And if you're really strong in this strength, it can be equally a drain because
Wow.
you're taking the pains of others upon you, and sometimes you have difficulties understanding whether it's your pain or their pain. um, it it's so
Amen.
true empaths will often be great around people, but they'll also sometimes shelter and hide away from people.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense because they're taking so much on. It's almost like you can't be Superman all the time. People are gonna ask for help all the time, so you gotta hide away. Ooh, maybe Superman's an empath.
No, I doubt it, but and I've talked to people who've had it, and they'll get into a social situation and just be able to tell things that you and I would just be oblivious to.
Yeah.
They're able to tell, they're able to feel that. And so they get inundated with sometimes the negative emotions of people around them.
Wow.
And that, yeah, that can be overwhelming. If they have a strength like positivity, then they can try and balance that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the key to every strength, is
Yeah.
learning how to balance it with your other strengths so that you don't fall into some of these
That's good.
holes that you can get into if you just use that one strength.
Yeah. The 30 days of videos has taught me one thing. I am not consistent. And that's why my consistency strength is number 32.
What about discipline? Is that low on your list too?
uh Let me see. I'm looking. Number 30.
Yeah. You and I are a lot alike, I
A lot of
think.
like I have to share my map with you. This is hilarious. Well, I
Yeah.
didn't know where we were gonna go. I mean, this was a really awesome conversation, especially because it's mindset related, and it's all mindset, right? The where we put our thoughts into and where what we want to do with our lives and our expertise, it all comes down to how much like energy you put into it. And I think these strengths help you realize what you have versus what you can get to. That makes sense.
Yeah, and one of the things that's great about knowing your strengths is you can focus on those and leverage those.
Mm,
You sometimes hear people say, I focus on my weaknesses because I want to become stronger. And that's actually counterproductive.
yeah.
When you know your strengths and you leverage them, you'll be more successful. Now, where you're weak, the thing you have to learn is to find people who are complements to you in those
Oh, yes.
strengths. For example, in team building, I mean, you and I were talking about teams. I love team building.
Yeah.
On a team, you might have somebody with the activator strength. They're the idea people. They
Mm-hmm.
come up with ideas all the time and
Yeah.
they want to start on it and they charge. But you know what their weakness is? They fail to finish. And yet, if you take that kind of person and pair them up with somebody with discipline or achiever, um, or strategic,
Mm-hmm.
they can help an activator say, hold it, before we start something new, here's what we've got to do to finish this. Let's get this finished and move on. So together, they
You work
can,
together.
yeah,
Better.
you can have a more effective team if you know how to bring these together.
Wow, that's really powerful. So what reminds me, so why did I even take this Gallup test, right? Like I'm okay with what I know, but I wanted to work with Roy Abdu, and I don't know if you've heard of him.
No, I haven't.
He's another influencer, and he was like, "Hey, I'm hiring for this position, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Cool, I would love to help you." And this was a time when I was unemployed, so he's like, "Why don't you go and take the Gallup strength testing? Do the whole full thing." I'm like, "All right, sure, I'll go and do it." So I did it, did the test, and I sent him the results. He's like, "Wow, we are complementary, very complementary because I'm an activator. He's in all of those things where he gets them started, but then he needs somebody to come in and finish that off." So that was very that was very interesting.
Enlightening. Yeah,
Yeah, enlightening.
exactly. I mean, I sometimes tell people if I were ever to go back into a management role,
Hmm.
I'd want to know what the strengths are of the people reporting to me,
Yeah.
because there are strengths like communication that, yeah, I have some good communication skills, but somebody with that communication strength would be somebody I would involve more on the team communications and presentations and things,
Yeah.
because they're going to excel at that and they're going to love doing it. All managers have to do strategic planning. If you've
Yes.
got somebody on your team with the strategic strength, those people are awesome at quickly looking at options and identifying the best option, and they
Mm.
can tell you why the other options won't work, and they'll be 5 steps ahead of you. So they can be frustrating because you're not there yet, but those are the kind of people you should bring into strategic planning with you as you're starting to develop those plans.
Dude.
So, I encourage managers to learn the power of the strengths and to figure out a way to get their teams involved with it. And some companies have. They've,
Yeah,
they've
yeah.
done that. Other companies haven't. I know I did it with my company originally.
Hmm.
They did a terrible job of follow up. I mean, we did the test.
Like, all right,
We,
we're
we
done
got the
with that.
5 results, but we had no real clue as to how they interacted with the other strengths.
Yeah,
That it's kind of like, well, I know you're an achiever, I know you're an empath or whatever, but just knowing that doesn't lead to actions of utilizing those strengths for
absolutely.
productivity and success.
Well, that was really eye-opening, and thank you so much for sharing. The different domains, what the results mean. It's very powerful, and I would encourage my audience to come talk to you and figure out what are they lacking. Are they which domain do they fall into, and how can they be better? How can they better serve the company that they're working for, or whatever it is that they want to achieve from life? Because I see four of my top 10 strengths are in strategic thinking. I'm thinking a lot of the time.
Yes, you are. You're very much like me from that standpoint. But yeah, if people would like to connect with me, do so through LinkedIn. That's the main way to do it.
Absolutely.
I'll be glad to get on a free discovery call with people. Because yes, when I coach people through the UMAP process,
Hmm.
they come out of it with insights like you're experiencing today,
Yeah.
and it opens their eyes and it gives them potentially tools to become more successful.
No, this is really good. And in the first episode we talked to you, we asked about your favorite movies and favorite superheroes. So we already have all of that
Yeah, you
information.
do.
So we don't need to go over it again. But dude, it was really awesome connecting with you again and learning. I mean, it's been very mind opening for me, and thank you for all that you provide.
I'm glad to.
Awesome. I wish you the very best in launching your book. Please let us know when the book is out so we can include it on the podcast episode link and, you know, along with all the other links so people can get to you. And if there's anything that I can do to help you move along and, give you a turbo boost in anything at all, please reach out to me.
I will. I always appreciate you, Janae. You're a
Awesome.
great
Thank
friend.
you so much. I appreciate you as well. Thank you so much, Steve, for coming on. Have an awesome day.
You too.